about my mom. And people that work with me today will absolutely not believe this story. I was an incredibly shy child. I couldn't talk to anyone. I looked at my feet when I talked to people. I much preferred to be by myself than I did with anyone else. So my mom made me get the job at Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor to help to draw me out of my shell. The people that work with me in the audience today are now thinking, I wish they'd left her in the shell. Didn't have to deal with her moving forward, but they do. And it was incredible. As the councilwoman shared, and John Chan, deputy city manager, he worked at Sears. I was a Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor waitress, and councilwoman was Park Lane Hosiery. So you can imagine how much this mall means to us, and all of the memories of back to school shopping and Black Friday shopping, as councilwoman said, and ice skating. And more importantly, if Alan Stevenson is here, one of our deputy city managers, cruising. John and I we're old enough, we started cruising on Central. When they closed Central, we had to move out to Metro Center. And as the councilman said, you'd cruise the loop until you got in trouble for passing by the same spot too many times, and then we'd all go home. If we go on to the next slide, you'll see, again, just those pictures of Metro Center. Someone asked me once when we were talking about demolishing it, they wondered if there wasn't a company in Phoenix that could recreate the smell of the ice in Metro Center. It had this really distinctive smell that we all absolutely loved. And if you're here in the audience today, I'm working on it with a small tech company that's in Galvanize, so I'll get back to you on that one. If we go on to the next, again, just the celebration. You had a Ferris wheel inside the mall. You had roller coasters inside the mall. You had all these great events, and you would just get dropped off. This wasn't a time when it is like it is today, where your parents are eagle eye and helicoptering over the top of you. We'd whine at our parents to get dropped off here and spend the entire day at Metro Center. And as we move forward, Metro Center really made its name as the starring backdrop in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which was a story of kids and the high school was in Scottsdale as well that it was filmed at, but it was a story of two guys who screwed up their history paper, had to not get failed out of school, and traveled in a phone booth back in time to be able to learn all of these different things and bring all of these characters forward from history moving forward. It was Keanu Reeves' kickoff, and then Alex Winter was with him also. I'll also share with you that the city of Phoenix, I am fortunate enough that the film commissioner is under Community and Economic Development, and the City of Phoenix Community and Economic Development Department, the film commissioner, issued the permits for this film that was filmed here. Many of its scenes in Metro Center, Circle K in Tempe, a high school in Scottsdale, which was an incredible amount of fun. But I also think about the rich history of Metro Center, the jobs that were created here, the construction jobs, the permanent ongoing retail jobs, the management jobs, the economic impact that this facility created. But more importantly, the connections and the activity, new business startups, the things that happened at this location. So when I think about having been here as a child at the groundbreaking of Metro, the original Metro Center, I now get to be part of the vision that creates the new iconic Metropolitan. And I'd really like to thank Mr. Steve Sarang. I'm going to tell you another quick funny story. So as was talked about, I had the pleasure of working on another project's demolition in the East Valley. On my birthday in August 14th of 2014, Chris Anderson and I were in a city council chambers, his birthday as well. We're in a city council chambers to get that zoning through. It was my last night in that East Valley city before I came to Phoenix. I came to Phoenix and immediately called Chris, driving home from work one day, and I said, hey Chris, we did this really hard project together. What do you think about doing Metro Center with me? Chris immediately asked me if I drank at work. Yep, he said life was too short for Metro Center. He had his hands full with Veridian, and he couldn't help us here. So our team and I spent the next years, I think about 8 years, going through different developers. So they were all mouth, no trousers. They could do this incredible project if we just give them $1 billion. They wanted to level it and put up residential. They wanted to save the mall and turn it into a distribution center. Nothing that fit the revitalization or redevelopment plans that the city had. And then in 2020, Mr. Steve Sarang walked into a conference room with Jeff Stapleton and I and laid out his vision of what Metro Center should be. And when he left, I turned to Jeff and I said, we just met the redeveloper of Metro Center. And Mr. Sarang, your vision, your fortitude, you've been through so much with us to make this project move forward. There is nothing we can ever do, the councilwoman and I can ever do to thank you for your vision, for your determination, for your flexibility, for your ability to pivot when everything was thrown at us humanly possible to deliver this incredible project. So what I will share with you is that it kind of makes it kind of fun that Chris Anderson was the first developer I called, and Mr. Sarang, in partnership with Chris Anderson, was the 26th developer that we called to do Metro Center. So please join me in thanking them. And also, Councilman O'Brien mentioned Councilwoman Thelda Williams, who was here with us and is no longer with us. She had such a vision for what Metro Center could be. And I remember when the councilwoman and I got to take her out to lunch right across the street and tell her about this incredible project. She was a huge champion for her district and for the revitalization of Metro Center. And that torch got passed to Councilwoman Ann O'Brien. She has had, again, she's been with us through this entire time. She's stuck with us through challenging projects. Every time I go into her room, I have something new to tell you. And she'd help me work through and come up with solutions of how we were going to move this forward. The mayor and the city council stuck with us through all these crazy ideas as to how to revitalize these old malls. So again, cannot thank Councilwoman Ann O'Brien, the mayor and city council for the work here. And if you'd indulge me, I'd like to recognize a few other people in the room. Tom Stack was our city attorney who sat in rooms with us and Diane Howler to work through all of the challenges. As you can imagine, the incredibly complicated project. Tom has since gone on to work for someone else, but we said there was no way we could kick off the demolition of Metro Center unless Tom was here with us today, and he graced us with his appearance today. Eric Froberg, our city engineer, who has to teach me, if you can imagine, what Title 34 is and how we can move forward. Eric's been with us since the very, very beginning of this project. Jeff Stapleton, who's really led this project as project manager in taking us to where we're at today. I come up with all the ideas and say this is what we should have that happens, but he's actually where the rubber meets the pavement and executes on everything we do. Zanon Keating oversees the Community Development Department. Assistant Chief Kreis, had to call him through, I can't tell you how many fire issues that we had that needed to work through to get this done. Alan Stevenson, at the time, was our planning director, now our deputy city manager, who helped us work this through. Mark Edelman with the State Land Department, who wrote an incredible piece for a community magazine about the redevelopment and revitalization of Metro Center and brought all kinds of great new ideas and things forward. So I'm going to forget someone, so I'm going to apologize for that. But I do want to thank from the bottom of my heart the person who lets us do all of these. I come to him with these crazy ideas, and he looks at me like I have 6 heads, but he gives his team the ability to move forward, the ability to be creative, the ability to stand out on a ledge with people sawing behind him, but he's always got a rope around our waist just to yank us back right before we go over, and that's our city manager, Jeff Barton. So in closing, I would like to leave you with the words of Sigmund Freud from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure as we move forward with this incredible project. There is a lot of work before us. Things are going to be hard, and we're going to work on them and solve them together. So as Sigmund Freud said, be most excellent to each other and party on, dudes. Almost forgot I'm supposed to introduce someone. But before I do, Councilwoman, your very own copy of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I'm going to make her watch it with me over Christmas. It's one of my favorites. And now I would like to introduce the CEO of Diversified Partners, Walt Brown.
You got it. 8 arms. I think she's more like an octopus. 8 arms, all successful in achieving things, versus 6 heads of thinking about it. So, I was sitting up here just really taking a look around this room. And what I think we all need to do is take one moment and just look at the power and the strength in this room. In redevelopment and development, this is not easy. And it takes an army. It takes vision. It takes discipline. It takes hard work. It takes an investment team that stays the course, because you come up with a lot of things and a lot of reasons to step back. And this team that I'm looking at right here is absolutely assembled something that, as a Phoenician, I am so proud. And what I would like to be the first to say is, Metro Mall, no more. The Metropolitan. Think of that word. Think of what you think of when you experience that word. Think of the cities and all the greatness and all the fun times that you've had, and put that at our project here. We have been fortunate enough to shepherd the project's retail. And what we're going to bring to you will be the only place in the state of Arizona. And I want to talk a little bit about it, but I think, John, I think we should unveil the name of the retail element that will not only be interactive, it will be exciting, it will be the destination place that you will want to go with your mom, your dad, your children, your brothers, your sisters, that you know will make a difference. So with that said, I introduce to you the Loop, the retail at the Metropolitan. When you think of the Loop, you have to think of a place that you want to go. In this unique project, you have the transit that is an X factor to retail. You have the density, and density is what makes a retail project successful. You have an ownership's mindset, and I say that to all of you, and Steve, you and Terry and Nate and their entire team, it's you guys have worked so hard at this, and your passion is second to none. I've done a lot of square footage in the United States, and I've never seen it, and I'm proud to be your partner. Very proud. It's a great place to be in. But when you think of the Loop, you think of a place that your family wants to go. You want to go to find the right restaurant, whether it be something high-end with your wife on date night or your children. If you need a service item to be able to service. But what makes a difference at the Loop is you've got transit. You've got 1,100 homes that are all walkable, that have the opportunity to go have a glass of wine, turn around and walk right home safe. Because it's not only, this is a major task to redevelop a project like this, but then you got to run it properly, you got to manage it properly, you got to make sure it's safe, you got to make sure it's got the right lighting. And I think that you guys have done an amazing job. So on behalf of Diversified Partners and my team, we are honored to be your partner. We're excited to be here, and just take 1 second and look around at everybody in this room, because this is going to be an amazing project that everybody will be proud of, the Metropolitan. Thank you.
I have to lower the mic a little bit for my Walt. Thank you, Walt. And it is really a dream team around this project. And I left off one name, somebody I had not met before, and I didn't realize that, Bill, you were here. But we do have the president of CDS Holdings, Bill Milmo, here also. So thank you, Bill, for coming. All right, I'm going to just wrap this up very quickly for all of you. But we really have sort of 5 points we want to make to all of you, and hopefully you've picked up on these as we went forward. But this project with Steve's leadership fulfills the vision that the city and this village, this urban village up here, had for what they wanted to have happen to the mall as it was redeveloped. The urban village that came with the village plan before we even took a look at the property was to create a transit-oriented urban village of residential around an urban core, a core that's activated. And that's really, it was kind of amazing in a way, and Chris talked about this, that not only was that Steve and Nate's vision for this property, but that was the city's vision. And so merging these two visions together is really the key to this project. The second is providing quality, reasonably priced housing options, both for rent and for sale. And that's something that really has just started to happen over the last year or so as we've been exploring this project. And I think, as you heard a little bit about the planning for this, that we are now exploring for sale townhouse product here, so that young professionals and young families can have an urban housing product that might allow them to work either up the Black Canyon corridor with the jobs, where Chris and her team are starting to create all these jobs there, or in the center city by using light rail. So this transit-oriented project gives us the ability to create this reasonably priced housing around this urban core. Creating a safe and attractive town center, and you heard about this a little bit from Walt, that having a town center that will bring people to this, that has retail amenities and programming to the center. Park, plaza, including the rooftop amenity. That's going to be very unique, and we think we'll be able to provide something that has views, distant views around the whole western part of the city. And again, we think that will create real interest. So we'll have a park at the ground level and a park up on the top of the garage. And then last is long-term taxes to the city, property taxes, but also TBT, transaction privilege tax.
Good morning and welcome to the November 20th Transportation Infrastructure and Planning Subcommittee. I call the meeting to order. And Alyssa, could you explain public comment?
Thank you. Good morning. Members of the public may speak for up to 2 minutes to comment on agenda items to be discussed. Comments must be related to the agenda item and the action being considered by the subcommittee. General comments that go beyond the scope of the agenda item must be made in the call to the public session at the end of the agenda. The City Council and staff cannot discuss or comment on matters related to pending investigations, claims, or litigation. Additionally, any member of the public who appears before the subcommittee in their capacity as a lobbyist must, as required by Phoenix City Code, disclose this fact before addressing the subcommittee. The City Code requires speakers to present their comments in a respectful and courteous manner. Profane language, threats, or personal attacks on members of the public, council members, or staff are not allowed. A person who violates these rules will lose their opportunity to continue to speak.
Thank you. And we do have an interpreter, Daniel Feliciano. I know he's invisible, but that's because he's downstairs. Daniel?
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Daniel Feliciano, and I'll be serving as Spanish interpreter for today's subcommittee meeting. And I'll take a moment to introduce myself to the Spanish-speaking audience. Buenos días y bienvenidos. Mi nombre es Daniel Feliciano y voy a estar sirviendo como intérprete para esta reunión del comité. Y para que sea más posible la interpretación o más exacto, pedimos que por favor, si van a dar un comentario público, que habla con claridad y evitar tener distracciones al fondo. Y finalmente, si puede pausar después de cada 2 oraciones para poder interpretarlo y lo que usted está diciendo de la manera más completa posible. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. And now we turn to our agenda, and the first item is approval of the minutes. May I get a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Next, we have our consent agenda. Item 2, approval of Route 27 service change. Can I get a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have 2 information items, number 3, number 4. Is there any requests to get additional information? Hearing none.
None
then
from
we-
me, Chair.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, Regional Transit Fare Collection System Improvement Project update.
Yes, Madam Chair. Happy to introduce Public Transit Director Jesus Sapien, and he will introduce our partners from Valley Metro to discuss an update on the Regional Transit Fare Collection System. Jesus?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Members of the subcommittee, thank you for having us today. Just a little background and reminder information. In January 2019, following approval by the Phoenix City Council and Valley Metro Board, the Public Transit Department, in a parallel effort with Valley Metro, issued requests for proposal to solicit a new regional fare collection system. The project is focused on providing passengers with a multitude of options, including cash and mobile-based options, a trip planning function that incorporates real-time vehicle data, and establishing a more efficient and expandable system for the region. As outlined in the staff report at that time, the project objectives were determined primarily from the needs and shortcomings of the current system, regional transit staff workshops, and most of all, public input over the years. Today's presentation provides the subcommittee with an overview of the new system's functions, its phasing in over the years, and the outreach efforts undertaken to educate passengers and organizations on the various new fare options and how customers' ease of use continues to be the focus. With me today from Valley Metro to be providing more information are Dane Riles, Fare Programs Manager, and Ken Kessler, to my immediate left, Chief Financial Officer. Dane?
Thanks, Jesus. I just want to say a few words here. Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, thanks for having us on the agenda today to provide this overview and update of this project. As Jesus described, as a project long in the making. These large technology projects have a lot of different moving parts involved in them, and we've been implementing this new system over the last several months, making good progress. And then, of course, new technology, not without its challenges, but we're working through that with our vendors, and we feel very excited to roll out this new system and provide these new payment options for our customers. And Dane Riles, our Fare Programs Manager at Valley Metro, will go through this presentation and provide you with the update and overview. Thank you. Dane?
Thank you, Ken. Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, I'm happy to be here today to provide an overview of the fare collection system and the progress we've made as it rolled out to the general public. As was mentioned, our previous fare collection system had been around for a while and was reaching the end of its useful life. The equipment was hard to update and parts were hard to find, so the region did make the strides to move forward with the new fare collection system to provide additional benefits and flexibility to our customers. The regional goals that were established for the new system were to improve the options for our customers and the ease of use of the system. We also wanted to have better data and information about our ridership and the revenue reconciliation that accompanied that. We also wanted to make sure that we had tools that made the distribution and oversight of our reduced fare programs more flexible and easier for our customers as well. And then also look at alternatives to continue to evolve and grow the system and make it more useful and meaningful for our customers. And at the end of the day, provide a transit system and a fare collection system that's more equitable for all of our customers across the region. Some of the features that we want to highlight of the new system, the main one is that our fare pricing did not change. The price of a day, week, or monthly pass in the old system is maintained in the new system. However, there are more easy ways to access those fare pricing options. As was also mentioned, cash does remain an option in the new system. We have multiple cash options, which I'll cover in a few slides. And again, a lot of the features you see on the screen here really show that it is a rider-focused system that provides options that make it more flexible, and at the end of the day, will make it easier to use for all of our customers. Just a brief overview of the timeline. The project did start many years ago, but the public did get the Valley Metro app as the first part of this rollout, and over time we've added more features to make the system more accessible as we approach this rollout of the entire system this fall. We added a mobile fare option in 2023. We did have an online option for reduced fare application added earlier this year, and then throughout the last several months we've started to roll out the new system and make sure that we have it in a phased and methodical process so that all of our customers have time to transition and understand those transition changes before it was fully implemented. Just to give a brief overview of how the system works, smart fare is also known as fare capping in the industry, and that is the new way to pay in our system. The way it works for our customers is that they will need to choose between using a copper card or the Valley Metro app. Once they make that selection, they will add money to their account, and they will either tap their copper card or scan their mobile app every time they take transit. The main benefit of fare capping or smart fare is that no matter how much they tap their copper card or scan their mobile phone, they will never pay more than the daily, weekly, or monthly fare prices automatically. So you don't have to think about buying a 31-day pass up front and paying the full cost up front. You will slowly reach that $64 monthly fare if you're paying full fare, and you won't have to pay any more than that. So the way it works for our customers, if they have $20 on their copper card, they'll tap it each time they ride. If they ride the bus twice or more in a day, they will only pay up to the $4 cost. Once they reach the $4 cost, they can ride the rest of the day no matter how much they want, and no more money will be deducted from their account. The same is true for the calendar week. No matter how much a customer rides using the same card or app account in the week between Monday and Sunday, they will only be charged up to $20 and never more. The same is true in a calendar month. $64 is the most that someone would pay for full fare local service. If you compare that to our old system, a 31-day pass was also $64. However, that cost in the old system was a cost up front that you paid, no matter how much you ride for that month. So there are a lot of benefits in the new system of only paying for the trips you actually take, but still getting that monthly benefit. As I mentioned, reduced fare still is available. The qualifications for reduced fare have not changed. However, the accessibility of reduced fare has increased with adding an online option for application, as well as additional locations where our customers can go in person to get a reduced fare copper card or reduced fare applied to their Valley Metro app account. Our retail network is a big part of the new system as well. It provides more accessible options to buy and reload your copper card. We currently have over 850 physical locations, Circle K stores, Safeway, Albertsons, Walgreens, CVS, where customers can go either purchase or reload a copper card. There are some stats on the screen of over 850 locations. We also have the ability to load the Valley Metro app with cash. That's available at over 800 locations and provides access to use the app even if you don't have a debit or credit card or a bank account. We also have sold, these numbers are a little bit older, we've actually sold nearly 10,000 copper cards at retail locations, and we've had reload-only transactions well above 15,000 now. So we are seeing a lot of use and availability of the retail network. This map shows a brief overview of the locations where you can either buy or reload a copper card. And as you can see, it is a very regional approach and provides options across Maricopa County for our customers to access the transit system. As was mentioned at the intro, we do have plenty of cash options in the new system. A single ride cash option is still available on board buses and at all light rail platforms. We did install new fare boxes on the entire region's fleet of buses that provide that one ride for full or reduced fare using cash. We also have new fare vending machines at all of our light rail stations now, and more are being installed as we speak, which also provide cash options for both a one ride or the copper card. You can buy and load a copper card with cash at retail locations, light rail stations, and customer service windows. You can also, as I mentioned, load the Valley Metro app with cash at over 800 retail locations as well. So it provides a lot of cash options, whether it's using the copper card or the app. I do want to touch on our public outreach that was done. You can see a brief overview of that here on the screen, but we have been doing messaging related to this fare transition well over a year ahead of the transition, and then the outreach really began in the spring with fare town halls to provide information about the new system and the opportunity to apply for reduced fare. We also did outreach on the system, on board buses and light rail trains to provide information directly to our customers. We attended over 50 community events to provide the information at already existing events where we were reaching our customers as well. And then this fall, we did 19 pop-up events across the region to provide multiple different options for helping customers with transition to the new system. We do have a fare support call center, which is a dedicated customer service line for fare support specifically. Our customers have access to that. We are providing credit for old MagStripe passes. Those are no longer accepted, but we are providing the value of those passes credited onto a copper card or the Valley Metro app throughout the end of the year. That was also done at our outreach events to provide that option to not lose the value of those passes. We do, as I mentioned earlier, have in-person assistance at customer service windows for reduced fare, credit processing, as well as just information and getting access to the copper card. And then we do have information on our website, as well as a new website specifically to manage a copper card at valleymetrofares.org. And I will pause there for questions.
We do have one speaker, but let's go ahead and take questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation. For in-person customer service, is that also provided in Spanish?
Yes, our customer service, as well as all of our outreach events and materials, are provided in English and Spanish as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have several. Councilwoman?
No questions from me, Chair.
Hello, can you hear me? It doesn't matter. I think it's more for the audio and the visual. But,
Try mine.
let's see. Okay. I believe it's the fair media credit processing. Okay. Okay. I'm like, okay. I know. It says credits to the old media mag strip paper passes to the copper cards up until December 31st. I know of, I want to say 12 programs at the community colleges that have purchased the paper ticket. They are issued to students manually and I guess written down and everything. They purchased, I know of one group that has purchased over $4,000 worth of these tickets. What is going to happen? Because I don't think it'll be done by December 31st. So what is the recommendation for programs, youth programs, on having paper tickets?
Yeah, I will touch on the paper process, or the credit that I outlined was more for the general public who may have had their own personal media. We do have fair programs that I oversee of over 500 organizations. We are working with them to process and transfer those credits in a little bit of a different methodology. So we will probably extend that timeline for them, as many of them have a larger volume, and we know that it takes a little bit more time for that to happen.
Okay, I have several. Then for youth from K-12, in particular, I'm going to look at high school, what is required for them to get the discount?
To get the reduced fare, they would have to have some kind of proof of age or a school ID, and that would be accepted to get the reduced fare copper card or reduced fare applied to their Valley Metro app. Many of the schools also go through the programs to provide passes to their students as well. That would not require anything other than the school ID for the students.
Okay. And then the other piece that I've heard is for the seniors find it very difficult and find the ADA process or the senior process difficult to manage. So I'm not sure I can't remember what we changed in order to get them the reduced fare, and how are we assisting our seniors?
Yes, so just a couple things there. Reduced fare is available as a one-ride onboard buses. So if they do have a single trip to make and just want to buy a cash one ride, they would just need their ID. But to get the reduced fare copper card or reduced fare in the app, they could either go online or to those in-person locations, and we would just need to have a proof, like a driver's license or some kind of proof of age. Pretty much that, as well as the picture of them and their name that goes on the card. I will say in person, it does take a little bit of time for the data entry, but it is just a proof of ID that shows their age. And for seniors, we did change the qualification. They actually get 10 years of eligibility versus the standard 5, because we wanted to make sure that they don't have to go through that process again.
Okay, so what I heard is they need an ID. What if they don't have an ID, but they have a medical documents or showing it's paper documents, not necessarily an ID, I would assume. Sometimes I don't have my ID right now. I'm telling on myself, but I lost it and I don't have it, so I'm using my passport right now. But in those type of situations, what is the backup if they don't have an ID? I guess that's what I'm getting
Right,
to.
any proof of age, and then if there is any kind of medical documentation that would prove that, that's also accepted at the in-person location, as well as a mail-in option, or online. Again, depends on the type of documentation that they have.
And then I'm going to read some of the comments that have been sent to my office. I do not think Valley Metro should rely solely on copper card and application for fares. The copper card has to be registered to an account, a deviation from many cities with similar fare cards. Requiring registration of the card requires a smartphone or a computer and the skills to use both. Eliminating paper fares puts an unnecessary burden on certain riders, namely older adults and people experiencing homelessness. And then I think I just asked, does the online reduced fare application accept medical documents to demonstrate disability?
I'll touch on the first thing. An account is not required in the new system for reduced fare. You would need to go through the application process. You could go in person, provide your ID, and it technically is an account, but there's no requirement for the end user or the customer to register or manage it online. They could do that completely in person without that requirement. The medical documentation for reduced fare depends on the type of, if it's a medical doctor's note, that would need to go through the mail-in process or in-person process. Online, we do not have the ability right now to accept the medical disability option for the online account.
Okay. So I sit on the other side. So I will address that on the Valley Metro side. Because I think of my mother right now, who is, at this moment, is unable to drive and has limited mobility. And if she wanted to get somewhere to a doctor's appointment, she would not be able to go in person. And good thing she has a good daughter that would be able to sit with her and go online and do an app. I think what I discovered in her process of her operation and being in a hospital, there are many people of her age that do not have family, that are alone, and there's not enough people around them to support them, to help them in some type of process like this. And so I'm just bringing it up because these are the constituents notes that I get. And in Valley Metro, we have a bigger board, and so there's different things that we say. But I would like for that to go back, to have a really in-depth conversation regarding that. And I also think of people limited or have a disability and is unable to communicate the way we're asking them to communicate. I don't know if we can change it or not, but I would like to look at it.
Absolutely. I think that falls within the desire to continue to evolve and expand the options of the system.
Madam Chair, Council Member Pastor, at tomorrow's Valley Metro meeting, there is an overview of the regional ADA process, so I think you can provide your input.
Councilwoman Hodge Washington, do you have a question?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, Chair.
Okay. Councilman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Perhaps one of the opportunities as to what Councilwoman Laura Pastor is talking about, much like nonprofit organizations assist residents and with the filling out of Medicaid applications or for other types of government assistance programs, this could be an opportunity to create a test system in selecting certain organizations that have a wide network to be able to provide this type of service. Don't know what that looks like, don't know what it costs, but certainly an opportunity to explore for you all.
And perhaps you could work with our senior centers. That might be a good place to look. So we have one speaker, John Hines.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, good morning. I have grave concerns about this new system. When I completed my active duty in the United States Navy, I was transferred to the Naval Reserves and assigned to Naval Security Group 11-8. At the same time, I enrolled in Phoenix College as a student, and I read George Orwell's 1984. Now, being schooled in the problems of security from the Navy, Naval Reserve, I do not have a cell phone. I'm not connected to the internet. I do not have email. I do not want Big Brother keeping track of me. Now, I do appreciate that being a senior citizen, I have been allowed to have a reduced fare with a ticket, which I can show I've paid my fare and I can carry it with me, and I can show that I've done it. But I was given this copper card at the meeting that I attended for the other committee. This is for non-reduced fare. To get a reduced fare, I have to register. I've got to give a bunch of personal information that's going to be entered on a computer. And I don't know about you, but I've gotten so many notifications of data breaches from the bank, from this, that, my insurance company. I just don't think that I should have to submit all my personal information stored on a computer in order to qualify for the senior pass. I don't think that's fair. Additionally, well, I'm almost out of time, have more problems, but that's my main concern.
Thank you. Maybe you could speak a little bit about the security.
I'm not a security expert on the new system, but I will say that there are many security processes in place for the new system. A lot of the data is encrypted. So if you're tapping a card on board the bus just knows that it's a randomized sequence of numbers. I don't have the background to provide the exact data security of the system, but we're happy to provide more information. But I can assure you that we take that very seriously, and the system was designed around security of information that's stored.
I appreciate that. If you could get us some additional information, then we can share with the ridership of Valley Metro. I think that would be helpful. So any other comments? Yes, Councilwoman.
So my understanding is that we are still taking cash, so that people still have the ability to ride with cash. The only problem is if I ride with cash, I don't get the reduced fare.
You can get a one-ride reduced fare with cash as long as, if as a senior, if you have an ID or something that proves that you're eligible, there is a cash one-ride option for reduced fare on board buses and at light rail stations as is required.
Okay, so we still have that type of option.
We do.
And which I understand the gentleman's concern because I have several friends that operate very much with a flip phone. If anything, they stay with the flip phone if they need it, and refuse to get any type of other phone due to the data and people having their information. And then I can understand not having a computer because at times they don't have the internet to connect. And so what's the point of a computer? So I can understand those points. I know we're broadening and moving in a very, what is better for the collective, but we still have a very small collective that is not connected. And so I think that's where the space we really kind of need to hone in on. I'm not saying that we're not doing anything, but how do we help and how do we assist in order to keep people connected within the transportation world? So I'd like to thank you for doing the work that you're doing, but also problem solving at the same time. So thank you. I have one more.
Go for it.
What happens when the server is not working, there's no connections? What happens in that space?
You mean on board the bus? So the fare readers that are on board our buses are equipped with an offline mode. So our buses probably lose internet connection, more frequently than once in a while, but we do have an offline mode so that if someone taps their card and the bus is not connected to the internet in that moment, which is very possible, it will still accept their card because it has an accept list of information that allows people to board even when the bus may not be connected to the internet at that time. So there are protections in place to ensure the system still functions, even if the internet connection is not reliable on board that specific bus.
Okay, because I just got a constituent complaint, and it's of course a student, and the connections were not connecting, and basically the bus driver was not going to let her get on the bus. So the backup didn't work. I think there was an exchange between the student and the bus driver, and eventually the bus driver let her on the bus. But I think we have to talk about, that's another thing of connection, and I know it's customer service, I'm leading into another area, but customer service, but it's still a connection to a fare.
Right.
So we probably need to discuss that.
Yeah, there are protections in place, but there may be specific scenarios that we need to evaluate further.
It's
for
like
sure.
life. We've experienced that during COVID.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Well, thank you for the presentation, and I think you've done an excellent job, but it sounds like you still need to get out and communicate and work with some of our groups, both seniors and nonprofits. But thank you. Appreciate it. Our next item, 6, to establish the network infrastructure license by creating a new Chapter 5D of the Phoenix City Code.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, Deputy City Manager Alan Stevenson is here to introduce his team to talk about this next item.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Stark and Mr. Paniagua. This morning, we are here to talk about a new chapter to the City Code to allow for licensed providers to install a fiber optic network within the city's right-of-way. I have with me Eric Froberg, City Engineer, and Kevin Sonoda, Special Projects Administrator. So what is fiber to the home? It is a fiber optic-based communications network that transports internet data to and from the end user at home. And so it's a broadband service that will offer speeds from 500 megabits per second to 2 gigabytes per second. It obviously is much faster internet service. In this case, this is what's considered overbuilders. These are companies who go into a market and they just provide fiber optic networks for internet service, compared to Cox, which is a fiber cable, but also bundled with cable for television, and versus a Lumen CenturyLink, which has telephone operations as well. And so within the city of Phoenix, there's estimated 99% coverage that have existing access to high-speed broadband internet based upon FCC maps. Some exceptions may include county islands and areas with low density of housing units per mile. And so, in this case, like you said, the companies that are choosing to come in here that Mr. Froberg will talk a little bit more about in a minute, they're making a business decision to come in, and we are working to require them to meet some of the same standards that we do for our existing folks who are doing work within the right-of-way, whether or not they are a utility like Cox or CenturyLink, or they're even the city's water department, all have to meet the same kind of requirements. And in this case, we will go on here to the next slide real quick and talk a little bit about some of the costs, just to provide some background for the subcommittee discussion. This isn't something that the city has any purview over what it costs, but just by way of providing some background information, you can see from Cox, Desert INET, Zoom, and Google what their published rates are via the internet, and what we could find just for comparison sakes. And so Desert INET and Zoom are two smaller companies that are already doing work within the city, and Eric will talk about those here in just a minute as well. But with that, I'll turn it over to Eric and then be back to answer questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee, pleasure to be here today to talk about kind of the update and the progress that we've made on this item. So before we get into some of the nuts and bolts, we thought it was important to talk just a little bit about who some of the companies are and where they are currently within Arizona. Gigapower and Google, and it also shows what states they're in, but we're going to kind of specifically talk about where they are in Arizona. So Gigapower and Google Fiber are currently constructing fiber to the home in southwest or the southeast part of the valley in Chandler, Gilbert, Mesa, Tempe, and Queen Creek. BAM, Desert INET, and Zoom, you can see there in Cave Creek, Scottsdale, and Chandler. Those last three are actually working with us now under the current licensing agreements to be able to get ahead of it a little bit. They are interested in this being approved as they go forward, but some of these are already working with us as they move forward. So now with that, we know who some of the players are. Let's talk about what some of the other licensing deals that they have, or agreements that they have within the Phoenix Metro. Google and Gigapower have signed agreements with Mesa, Chandler, and Gilbert at 2% of their gross revenues. And they will pay, as part of that, in addition to the 2%, they will pay for any permitting, inspection fees, right-of-way management type of fees. Just as a comparison, as an equivalent that we currently have, and Alan mentioned it with Cox, That an equivalent is Cox pays 5% of their revenues, but what they don't pay is the permit fees, inspections, licensing, and those types of things. So what we tried to do, and you'll see as we go forward and talked about the fee structures that we've tried to come up with a fee structure that is equitable to our current users and future users that come in. So just by way of dollar amounts, the permit fees and inspection fees that we waive for Cox, or which is included in their 5%, amounts to about $2.5 million a year. But the fees that they do pay to us as that 5% in fiscals 23 and 24 were $7.5 million. So keeping in mind what some of our current users pay, we tried to come up with a fee structure for the use of our right-of-way that was equitable and would be fair to not only users coming in, but to our current licensees. We ended up at a 3% of direct gross revenue where they would pay the permits, inspections, right-of-way management fees, and trying to keep with that about 5%. As a way to, we understand that at the beginning, right, that there's a lot of capital that has to be expended and a lot of use in our right-of-way that won't necessarily reflect in fees right away because they're still building the network. We instituted an annual minimum fee, an AMF, that would allow them to start construction in the right-of-way, but would protect us and the user, and protect our right-of-way for them being in there before they're actually selling their service. We did start at $12 per home passed, and it was purely just going to be how many homes did they pass as they went through. It started at $12, then in September, through some conversations with some of the stakeholders, it went down to $9. Then we had some continued dialogue, and we ended up going down to $6 because we want to make it easier for them to come in and use the right-of-way, but not so much that it puts us in a bad position financially. So where we currently are and the fees that we have posted out there now for the posting requirements are, we have a 3% on gross revenues for the ISPs. As part of a lot of the conversations as we were with the stakeholders, we became aware that some of them are wholesalers where they don't actually provide the internet connection. They're just providing the cable itself, and then they lease out that space. So again, to try to create equity between them, we instituted a 6% of gross revenues on the wholesalers, and both of those, whether it's 3% or 6%, would pay permits, inspection, and right-of-way management fees, and we have maintained the $6 per home passed. As we look at next steps and what we currently know about it, we do know that fiber to the home will focus largely on residential properties, right, getting into the neighborhoods and into our local streets. With the 3 companies that we currently are working with in the areas that they have talked about wanting to provide their services to, we think that that's about a 3 to 5 year build out. So quite a long time for these companies to get those services ready for their customers. Following the last TIP subcommittee meeting, we did go back and have some additional feedback or additional stakeholder meetings. There were some questions, and here we've summarized kind of the three or four main areas of questions. One was to clarify and explain how we got to the 6% for the wholesalers. There was a request to have the Planning and Development Department, when new developments are coming in, new housing developments are coming in, to let them know about fiber to the home, and in a way to incentivize those housing developments to put it in before they pave our streets. We added a section in the code that would basically hold off on charging or implementing any of these fees until 51% of the homes have been sold in that neighborhood, as a way for them to get it in while they're putting in all the roads and sidewalks and water lines and all that, because there wouldn't be pavement to cut through. So, but we understand, right, new developments have to get to kind of a certain mass before we would start assessing fees. the last two areas here were there was some concern from Gigapower and Google about the licensing fees. They also wanted us to consider and allow microtrenching, and we'll talk about microtrenching and construction methods in a few slides. And they also wanted a waiver from the city's pavement restoration policy, and we'll again talk about that as we go on a little bit. We also did get, and I believe all the council office, the mayor and all the council offices got some information and requests from the Communication Workers of America. I know that the mayor had talked with us about wanting to get with law to review some of the requests that that we got from CWA. We did have a meeting last night with Councilwoman Pastor and CWA to get a little bit more in depth and to talk a little bit more about some of the issues that they've brought up. We will be working with law going forward. Many of those items that were contained within CWA's request, we already do. And for the ones that we are unsure, we're going to go back, talk to law, and then between now and December, be able to provide information back about which ones we can do and which ones we may not be able to.
Can I ask a question about that? So will that entail additional meetings, and you'll have the communication workers involved in that with our attorneys? Or are you going to have separate meetings? I'm trying to understand the process, knowing that it's supposed to come in December. I want to make sure we have adequate time.
Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee, the intent had been for staff to discuss with the law department and then be able to provide that information to CWA and the council for you guys to consider that. But we can certainly meet directly with CWA and provide that to them, from staff's perspective after meeting with the law department.
I think that might be helpful. And again, will that affect the timeline? Will we have to push it back a little bit? And I'm fine with that if you guys are fine with that, but just so you can have that conversation.
Vice Mayor, I don't believe it will impact the timeline. That we have had that initial discussion with the law department, and then some other items came up as part of the meeting, yesterday afternoon, and so that's where we want to sit down and talk through some of that a little bit and be able to then put forward, here's what we are doing and what we can do, and here's why we can't do some of the other things that are in the CWA request.
Great, just as long as we have a little bit of flexibility, and I appreciate the meetings you've had. I appreciate that Councilwoman Pastor had a meeting as well, but we want to make sure we're covering everything and including everybody. Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, Councilwoman.
The intent is to try to get this by December 18th. If not, I will ask for a continuance so that we can iron this out. The other piece is that it's not only, yes, there will be a meeting, but a meeting also with our city lawyers, but also with CWA lawyers for them to get to the right space, if we can get to the right space or compromise. But yes, I'm trying to aim for December 18th.
I appreciate that.
Along with everybody else.
I just always worry about all the holidays that are upon us. Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so we'll go back to that. Some of the concerns that we heard, again, and we're going to talk a little bit about microtrenching, and then we'll talk about the pavement restoration policy. So wanted to first talk about kind of the methodology that is used here in the city of Phoenix to put in similar type installations for electric, natural gas, kind of those smaller type utilities. We use a horizontal drilling or boring methodology. Here you can see a photo here of what that looks like. Typically, when you would do this types of things, if fiber to the home conduits would be at 3 to 4 feet under the surface, which puts it significantly below the pavement cross section So that's something that the streets department in particular is interested in. And then the fiber to the home companies would then have to restore the asphalt or landscape and those types of things. The benefit of horizontal drilling is that the amount of disruption at the surface, at the pavement level, is pretty minor. It only happens where the boring operation starts and then where the boring operation ends. It isn't a long continuous thing. This has been used for over 30 years. It's a proven kind of technology to put in this type of conduit and pipe. On the flip side, the request to use microtrenching, it's effectively a giant saw blade on wheels that gets pulled behind, and they cut small, and you can kind of see it in the right hand picture there. They cut a small little trench, and we have some other pictures as we go through. The intent here is to speed up installation. Cost is less, right? Because they're only going, it's about a 1 to 2 foot wide cut, and it only goes 10 to 12 inches deep. So the installation is quicker. So the impacts on the neighborhood and the residents may be less just because it is faster. But the city feels that the trade-off of the impacts to the pavement isn't something right now that the city is comfortable with. It is noted that there isn't currently a MAG or City of Phoenix standard for microtrenching. So we'll go through a few photos here. Some of these photos are from locally here, right, in Mesa or some of the other areas that are doing this work. So here you can see where they've run down right along the gutter line and they've put this in. And then the thing to remember about microtrenching, well, and especially for fiber to the home, if they go down one side of the road, every 3 or 4 houses, they're going to have to cross the road perpendicularly, which is the photo that you see here on the right, to get to the other side of the street, right? And then if we go to, here's a photo from Mesa where there are 2 providers. So you can see one went along the gutter line and then another one installed 3 feet to its right. If there was a 3rd provider, there would be another cut 3 feet to that. And then what isn't shown here is then if they would need to cross the street, then they would effectively cross the street, and maybe just one of them does, maybe both of them would. It depends on which customers they have. So could effectively create a giant kind of tic-tac-toe board within the pavement. You can see here when they go back.
Sorry, Councilman has a question. I apologize.
Yes.
So in my briefing, I remember we had this conversation, and I completely do not support carving up our communities. And with all the work that's gone in, with all of the concerns already about our roads in certain areas, no. And I also have concerns about the sealant that would be used, that we have no idea how it will respond to the weather, considering we have such unforgiving heat in Arizona. So, yeah, no.
I agree. Thank you.
Here's just another photo that shows where they cross the road, and then they put that mastic kind of material in there, and you can see where water ends up ponding, and then water and pavement or subgrade generally are a bad combination. So anytime you cut the pavement, you are potentially allowing for water infiltration, which could help the pavement break down faster than we want it to. So here's another picture. Don't have to belabor that one. Oh, the reason that I wanted to stop on this one is we do understand and we have heard their request to do microtrenching. So what we have offered to the fiber to the home companies is to do a pilot out near one of our service yards where we can monitor it over kind of a long period of time. We're still working out the details if they're interested in doing that, but it would be 18 months, 2 years, something like that, right? Where we could see how this material would, to your point, Councilman, last and or with our different seasons and the heat and then those types of things. So we will see, maybe in future meetings, the city would be comfortable with that, but currently the streets department isn't comfortable with that, primarily to protect, as you mentioned, the $200 million that mayor and council advanced for the accelerated pavement maintenance program. Seems that we would be going backwards, right, to potentially be cutting that up. The last one that there was some concern about was the pavement restoration policy. In, I believe it was 2017, the pavement restoration policy was put into the city code, and you can see the section there. Basically what this says, and it has a couple different criteria, that if there are more than 3 potholes during construction, or if there are any cuts in the pavement, that local streets need to be slurry sealed for the entire width. So you can see on the left-hand picture there, that's generally what pavement looks like after a slurry seal, and that's what the streets department is trying to keep all of our streets looking like. So the pavement, I will say too, that the pavement restoration policy isn't just for private development. The streets department implements that to other city departments. So I know that the water department was interested when this went through, but the water department now complies with this, and they just understand that's part of doing business.
And I want to say, actually, we had a water main break on my street, and the water department came through, and you know, I think I agree. One of the biggest complaints we get is on our roads and what they look like, and so I appreciate that we have the attitude: what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
So with that, I will now turn it back over to Alan, and he'll go over some next steps.
Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee, as we discussed, December 18th will be on the full council formal agenda. We did advertise that as part of the license fee notice requirements for state statute, and we will endeavor to have the discussions with law department and CWA, and then bring forward some proposed changes and items that will address some of those concerns, and then the council can obviously direct us wherever they'd like to do at that meeting. If it is approved on the 18th, then we'd be looking at being able to issue some licenses in January after the ordinance is effective 30 days later, and we'd be converting the existing licenses for the companies shown on the screen here that are already out there doing work within our communities to install their fiber optic. We'd convert their license to this license program as well on that. And with that, we are happy to answer any questions or the staff recommendation to approve Chapter 5D as presented by staff.
Thank you. We have some speakers, but prior to the speakers, Councilman, you had a question?
I do have a question. As part of the conversations that are going to be taking place leading up to December 18th, one that I have is, how are we going to get assurances that the contractor workforce are appropriately trained and or certified for the installation and the performance of fiber deployment?
So I think you were making a statement or asking a question.
No, I'm asking if that's going to be,
if it's
going to be part of the
incorporated
conversation. Yes,
by
thank you.
December 18th.
Yes.
They're shaking their head yes. Could you say yes?
And if not, I think we need to be clear, and if not, then it will not go December 18th.
Vice Mayor and members of the subcommittee, we understand what the request is, and I think we will, put together that information, and then the council will have to decide if that is enough of an answer that you guys agree with, and decide what you wish to do on the 18th. We are advertised for the 18th as part of that, so we could put together a continuance memo if that's what happens then, but it will still show up on the agenda. So we'll inform you as we work through the process to let you all know, as well as CWA.
I guess I want to be very clear. If we're not where it needs to be, then I would like to see a continuance notice. Yes, I understand the process of advertising and the 30 days and everything else, but what I'm trying to say is between our schedules and everybody else and trying to schedule city meetings and everything, we may not make December 18th. So I just want to be clear on it.
We understand, Vice Mayor, Councilman Pastor.
Thank you. Why don't we take our speakers then? The first is Jeremiah Davis.
Before I begin, I do have to disclose that I am a registered lobbyist for the Communication Workers of America. So my name's Jeremiah Davis. I am the president of CWA Local 7050 here in Phoenix. I represent over 300 workers, 150 of which are technicians. I'm here today to share with the subcommittee that I have spent time in the field tracking the Gigapower fiber deployment in Mesa. Gigapower selected Ansco & Associates as its prime contractor for Mesa, in which Ansco further subcontracted the deployment of the infrastructure work to over a dozen different subcontractors. I personally identified a number of these contractors in the field. CWA, unfortunately, cannot even confirm that the contractors we identified working on the Gigapower Mesa build is the exhaustive list, because the city of Mesa only required that the prime contractor, in this case Ansco, be the majority of the permits. CWA is here today, and we're asking for language regarding contractor transparency and verification of licensure. Registration and appropriate training be included in the city code changes for the proposed fiber license agreements. We hope that this subcommittee takes lessons learned from Mesa and other areas seriously, and that we expect companies like Gigapower and Google Fiber will be happy to clarify to the city of Phoenix who is building out their network and confirm that they are properly licensed and trained to do this critical infrastructure work.
Thank you. Next speaker is Shad Eckenbach. Did I get it? I almost got it. I apologize. Great name, though.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm also a registered lobbyist, ID 3611823. My name is Shad Erkenbach. I'm a CWA staff representative and former president of CWA Local 7026. As my brother Jeremiah mentioned, Gigapower relied on a convoluted network of over a dozen subcontractors in Mesa, and in just 18 months of work in the city, public agencies cited Gigapower's contractors for at least 40 underground utility hits, including electric, gas, water and sewer, and telecom, accruing over $135,000 in damages according to public records. Reports on the utility hits state that the contractor did not follow careful and prudent manner, contractor failed to maintain clearance, and the contractor failed to pothole verifying location. Recently, a family in Gilbert, Arizona was displaced from their home on October 29th due to a subcontractor working on Gigapower project drilling into a sewage line, causing over 3 inches of sewage in the family's home. The story was covered by a local NBC affiliate 12 News. Tilson was the prime contractor for Gigapower's deployment in Gilbert. The news article states that Tilson employee told the family they had hired a subcontractor to do the work. That subcontractor then told the family they also subbed it out. That family is now staying in an Airbnb because they've been displaced in their home and they had to pay $8,500 out of their own pocket to have the line repaired. This is a perfect example why we need contractor transparency. Without contractor transparency and safety disclosures, Phoenix will be left in the dark about who is working in the right of way, if they are qualified, if local residents are benefiting from this major infrastructure project with good jobs. Many other jurisdictions have already added contractor transparency disclosure to their city code, including the city of San Diego, the county of San Diego, and the city of Chula Vista, to improve oversight of their right-of-way. CWA looks forward to collaborating with the city of Phoenix to make this fiber project an absolute success for the public and the workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, William Cody.
Good morning. My name is William Cody. I'm an area vice president for CWA, Local 7019. I have been a broadband technician with CenturyLink Lumen for 26 years in Phoenix and have seen firsthand the impact of low road subcontracting on work quality, work safety, wages, benefits, and a lack of robust training in the telecommunications industry. When critical infrastructure work is subcontracted out to a poorly vetted and opaque universe of contractors, it can lead to dangerous outcomes for everyone. I have witnessed various contractors that have come and gone with no one left to take the responsibility of the aftermath impact of the work. The city residents and taxpayers end up carrying that burden long after the contractors are gone. How will the city handle any upcoming contractor issues when there is no accountability or transparency process codified in the city code? CWA asked this subcommittee to add contractor disclosures to the proposed city code changes for fiber license agreements with internet service providers. As a lifelong Phoenician, a 26-year broadband technician, and an expert in the industry, I am proud to have played a significant role in building our telecommunication infrastructure in this city with my own hands. And I invite our city council members to include residents and telecommunication workers in conversations and decisions as we expand internet technology in this great city. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. So just a quick question. I know that we do already have some provisions in the ordinance that would assure some transparency, but are there other things we can look at perhaps? And is that what the attorneys are looking at? I understand we're a right-to-work state, so I know that can complicate things, but I'm just curious.
So, Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee, there are things that the city already does in terms of the prime contractor and verifying that they're licensed and can do work in the state of Arizona. There are other things that the city does not do and probably won't be able to do, like require state and federal tax identification numbers, because we are not paying them for this work. We are licensing a third-party entity to do work in the right-of-way that meets our standards to protect the public's investment in the right-of-way. And so it's things like that that we need to work through with the law department to see what we can do and logistically how we could make some of those things happen versus other ones that we can't legally do, because there is a difference in setting up a license program that's providing a third-party service to the public, but compared to the city paying for actual work where we have more ability to do some of these things.
And then one other question, I don't know if this is really more for legal or not, but if we were to move this ordinance forward, but there were some suggested language changes before it gets to the council, how would we address that? Will we have the ordinance that we move forward and then have a copy of perhaps what changes might happen? I'm just trying to figure out how that would look. Yeah.
Work it out here.
Yeah. I don't think we can without the attorneys.
Yeah.
No. I mean, what I mean by work it out in committee and do the language and get it, see if we, I guess maybe if we have a committee meeting before the 18th.
So, I'm sorry.
That would be great, but I'm going back to put my parents in assisted living, so I'm not going to be here. I'm sorry. I have those elderly parents that don't have anyone that lives in the same town they live in. So I'll be... I guess we could try to do it virtually, but let's figure that out. But what would we do? I'm curious if we could present both, and maybe that'll help.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor, subcommittee members, I apologize for the delay in responding. I believe we could present both options at the committee meeting, at the council meeting, excuse me, and vote at that point.
So perhaps the motion would include something like that, with possible changes and a second amended, or I don't know. How do we wordsmith that?
So, Vice Mayor and council members, if I could, I think what staff would propose is that we would bring forward a modification showing here's changes that would need to be made, here's what, because a number of things that are being discussed by CWA are things that are more appropriately addressed in the license agreement and the requirements that are laid out there, not directly for just this type of work being done within the right-of-way. And so we'll have to look at that, but we can do a memo that would explain, here's the additional ones that that we can do, and here's where those would lie, whether they be in the ordinance, we'd obviously make those changes, or in the license, agreement, and here's things that we can do based upon discussion from the law department, and then we can present that to council, and then you guys can say yes to that, or we want to make other changes, based upon that. That way we could share that with CWA. They could then talk to you guys as well before the 18th to make sure that their voice is heard in that process, and you guys are able to digest the information and make an informed decision on the 18th, or decide at that point to continue it to January if you wish.
Okay, if we could have those assurances, then Councilwoman Pesser?
Yes, where I have some concern in all of this is that the point of the subcommittee is to work these things out and then move stuff to the council so that all of this is worked out, and basically we went back and forth with what we were doing. So I have great concerns over that, because then if I'm voting, I'm saying I'm blessing the language that's in today. And legally, I would like to know this, because if I bless the language that's in today, that's what's going to show up on our packet, and that's what's going to be advertised, unless we get the memo and saying we are making all these changes, and this is the language that we are now recommending, versus having two different. I want to be very clear on how this is moving.
Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, I think one option today is that in your motion to approve this item, if that's what the subcommittee elects to do, is that you could clarify that the motion to move it forward includes direction to continue to work with CWA, have further conversations, and to bring forward to the council meeting any additional changes or language that come from that discussion. And so I think that can clarify that you're not necessarily blessing the exact language of today, but you're moving the item forward for further discussion at the city council meeting, with potentially with additional or changed language that results from those further discussions. So that's another option to consider today.
Yeah, you want me to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to the effect of what.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, sorry.
Just that actual proposed motion would be.
We lost you.
Councilwoman, you're breaking up. Can you say it again?
Gotta love technology. Okay, Councilwoman, do you want to try to?
Try calling from the other.
Maybe go out and come back in?
Okay, now.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Just repeat the last.
Councilwoman Hodge Washington would like for the language to be repeated of what's going to be in the motion so that she's clear on what we're voting on, and also that we're clear in recognizing the concerns expressed by Councilwoman Pastor. So could legal
So
please?
much, Councilman. That's exactly what I was asking.
So if legal could please restate the recommendation, or Mario, if you could please restate the recommendation, and then I can follow with the motion so that it's clear to everyone who is present and our viewers as well out there.
Absolutely, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. So it would be essentially a motion that moves the item forward for consideration by council in December, with the caveat that staff would be continuing to discuss and meet with the CWA, and that when the item comes forward to the council, it would incorporate any changes or additional language that staff agrees to, and any explanation of any, of anything that couldn't be included.
So I'll make a motion to that effect.
Thank you for the clarification.
Was that a second?
No, go ahead. I was going to second it. Yes, thank you.
I didn't hear what she said.
We couldn't get that. Sorry, it just keeps breaking up.
She seconds the motion.
Yes, I'm going to call in.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Did you want to make a statement?
Yeah, I wanted to add to the motion, knowing that by working with CWA and city staff, that the language that then gets altered or moved forward, we're okay. Okay. Yeah. That we have, it's the blessing of us.
Right.
Okay. That's what we're doing.
And Vice Mayor, I can agree to that, to be noted within the motion.
Okay. All right.
Same, Vice.
Okay, great. I understood that second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Oppose?
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have call to public. First, I hope I don't destroy this name, Edward Zink. You're laughing. I destroyed the name. I'm sorry. Please tell me you're used to that.
Thanks,
Oh,
Councilwoman Stark. It is Juk.
Yeah.
So if you're Polish, that comes easy. Otherwise, not. I had some questions about the study that was done. I guess it's in retrospect now that to automate traffic flow management in the city, given the experience of other cities that are seeing 30% declines in wait times and pollution, and was wondering if the study that was done along Glendale Avenue is available for public review, and what conclusions were made from that study, and if anything is going forward at this time, what might that be?
Thank you. I believe staff's here. Maybe they can connect with you. And I apologize. I forgot to ask the city attorney to explain public comment. I apologize. And streets should be here somewhere. They can maybe meet with you. Thank you. We have two more speakers. Do you want to go ahead and?
Certainly, Madam Chair, thank you. During citizen comment, members of the public may address the subcommittee for up to 3 minutes on issues of interest or concern to them. The Arizona Public Meeting Law permits the subcommittee members to listen to the comments, but prohibits members from discussing or acting on the matters presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Jerry Van Guest. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you, Chairman. Jerry Van Gass, public watchdog for the mountain preserves and parks. 4 years ago, right at the beginning of the pandemic, myself and several other concerned citizens discovered massive dumping of construction earthen materials within South Mountain Park. It's been moved around. There was no authorization, and 4 years later, we still don't know who authorized this dumping. It's still there. Consequently, November 1st, we filed a 78-page criminal complaint with the Attorney General's office. And that's where it is right now. And we've offered, in fact, you can Google up South Mountain Park illegal dumping. There's an investigative report from Channel 3, some articles. It'll give you the essence of the complaint. We've offered to take anyone interested on tours of the dump sites. They're all there. They're still there, even in the Salt River bed. The only ones that have taken us up on that offer, no one from the city, but the media. We've taken a number of them out there, and they're waiting to hear where this goes. So we are going to get some answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Harry Whitesell. You don't have to jog.
Hi. I was just talking to a gentleman over there, and I wanted to talk about the high fiber that's going in. I live in Ahwatukee, what is called the Ahwatukee Village. That's south of South Mountain. I'm on the board of directors of an HOA. It's a private, we have private streets, and I noticed along the public streets, fiber optics is being put in on what you would call Ranch Circle. And then I saw them go north on another public street on 38th Place. They didn't come into our street, which is fine. They're private streets. So I may be asking questions that I should know, but I don't know. How can I track that? How do I know what streets are being done? I did some research, and I guess the city of Mesa, when they realized they had developments with private streets, they were getting the permission of the board of directors to go into the private streets. I'm on that board. I haven't heard anything. So I don't know. Where's that information that a citizen or someone could track? Where's the fiber optics going in? Is there a map? I don't know any information, and I apologize for that, and probably I should know. I will say, and I guess I have a little bit of time, CenturyLink is in our neighborhood right now. When I say in our neighborhood, they're in there constructing. They are digging a trench in our private streets. They are digging maybe a 7-foot by 7-foot hole on a private lot. It's about 2-3 feet deep. We go across the street to another private property. There's maybe a 7 by 7-foot hole, 2 or 3 feet deep. I talked to one of the workers. They said they were with CenturyLink. There's 2 trucks there with no identification on it. The homeowners, we've talked to the homeowners. They don't know what's going on. Now, here's a problem. Our association takes care of the front landscaping. The board of directors, we're responsible for replacing all this. And we've chased CenturyLink and Cox in the past over damage they've caused to our sprinkler system. I have 40 seconds. So, how do I find out about this information? There's CenturyLink, no identification. There is a building permit. I went on the City of Phoenix website, looked at the building permits. There's an active permit at 3835 East Kent. Looked like, Laura, you have an answer to me. East Kent, I go on there. It's an active permit, and there's no information. It's just active. The homeowner's name is there, and the homeowners, they know nothing. Can somebody help me?
So Alan Stevens, if you start with him, raise your hand, Alan, and then he'll lead you to the team.
Get a promise. Thank you. That's all our speakers. Next, future tip agenda items. Are there any suggestions? Looks like we're going to have a pretty robust December 18th. That's it. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Waiting for others to join.
Valley Petroglyph Preserve, a quarter-mile-long nature walk featuring petroglyphs and natural desert plants. The preserve has an incredible museum and gallery with exhibits like the Southwest Ceramics, Manos en Metates, the Agave,